Hello guys, welcome to this new video. Today I'm going to show you how to clone SSH with Jenkins. It is very important that you know how to clone SSH with Jenkins because at work we don't use public repo. We use private repository at work, and then for a private repository you will need to clone SSH with Jenkins. So if I go online, for example, let's say I go change the visibility of this repository. So if I come down here and say change visibility, I will make it private. I want to make it private. Now the repository is private, right? Now the repository is private, meaning that as of now, if you try to clone SSH, it's not going to work, right? Oh, the repository didn't go through. Give me 1 second. The setting, change visibility, change to private, make the learning study private. I want to make this private, yes. Making this private. I have really understood this effect. This is a disruptive action. Make this repository private. Okay. Let me change my visibility now. The repository is now currently private. So if we go back, check the repository here is private. Now, if I take this, for example, let's come HTTP. Let's go in Jenkins. Let's create a job. Let's come here, for example, in DevOps. Well, let's create a test job. Let's say, for example, let's call that job private. Let's create a pipeline job and quickly jump to source code management. Supply the Git source code management. To enter this here, as you guys can see, it is asking me for the credential because why? The repository is private. Then at work, we don't use HTTPS, right? We use SSH. Now, if I come down here and change this to SSH, it will still not work because I have not supplied any key. As you guys can see, I have not supplied any key. If not work. So if I take, for example, this data, that's not correct. So I will show you how to make this work, how to use SSH to clone in Jenkins. The first thing that we need to do is to generate the SSH key from Jenkins. So we are going to log in into the Jenkins server right here. I am already inside the Jenkins server. I'm going to generate an SSH key. So we say SSH -key gen. This will help us generate an SSH key. You just have to keep pressing enter. It will generate an SSH key, and usually it will generate 2 keys, right? It will generate 2 keys. If I say ls.ssh, it will generate 2 keys. It will generate the private key, it will generate the public key. Number 2 says we need to add the public key to GitHub. So I will go ahead and add the public key to GitHub. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this key, which is located under this. This is my public key. I will cut this key, then I will copy this key here and go back to GitHub. On GitHub, to add your key on GitHub, you need to go under your name here, you choose setting. Under setting, you choose SSH key. So let's add a new SSH key. Let's give that, let's call it Jenkins series. And let's give him this name, put the key here, and let's add the key. We have successfully added the key. Now we can go back to our repository. Search for that here called series. That's our repository here. On number 2, we need to clone any repository to establish a fingerprint, right? We need to establish that fingerprint, or else it may not work, meaning that we need to clone repository. So I will come here, take this repository here, clone SSH. I need to make sure that you work on my Jenkins server. So I can say git clone here. Git clone, git add factor destination already exists. So let's remove it. It looks like it's already there. So let me do the git clone again. That's a fingerprint I was talking about. I just have to say yes and hit enter. It's going to clone. That's number 2. On number 3, we need to create a credential with the private key. So we go to Jenkins to create that credential. We can add it from here if we want, right? I can click here, and the type of credential that we need is not a username and password, but it is this one, SSH username with a private key. So I will select this credential here. I will come down here. I will call it Jenkins SSH, right? We call it Jenkins SSH, give him the same description. For the username, you can enter git and just enter here, click here, enter directly, and you click here add. We are going to add a private key, so we need to come down here and we need to cut the private key. This is the private key. So we need to copy, you need to copy the entire private key. It starts from beginning SSH and end SSH. Copy the entire private key and you put it here. Make sure that you don't miss any line. You can expand it here a little bit. That's the entire key, right? Beginning open SSH, end open SSH. Once you have that, you don't need to put any paraphrase, just add the key. Now, if I come here and refresh or reload, it's going to disappear, but let's see if it's working. Like the next step says that we need to configure the repo in Jenkins. It's already configured here. So if I come here, this it. Now I'm going to enter SSH, right? Instead of HTTPS, I'm going to enter SSH. Enter SSH there. Then I will pick the credential that match, which is this Jenkins SSH. As you guys can see, everything looks good. I will apply and save. Then I need to test. To test, you just have to view and see if Jenkins is able to clone SSH. Something happened. Let's see what happened. Change factor couldn't find remote master. Yeah, the issue that is couldn't find a remote repository called master. We are on a reference master here, while our repository is on develop. So we need to go back and fix it. Go back to private, configure. So we need to change the branch to develop because we don't have a master branch. And then we build again. Now everything looks well. So Jenkins is able to clone SSH. So that's how you configure Jenkins to clone SSH. As you guys can see here, Jenkins is cloning this repository. And if you look at the URL that is being cloned, this is the SSH URL. So that's how you configure Jenkins to clone SSH. So first thing you need to do, generate an SSH key using Jenkins, because the user that is going to run the show is Jenkins. Add the public key to GitHub. Clone the repository in Jenkins server so that you establish the fingerprint. You have to create a credential, type user SSH and username, and add the private key. You need to configure the repository by setting the SSH URL, and also make sure that you put the correct branch. Then you have to test it. It works. I hope you like the video. I'll see you guys in the next video.